I want to create a song that articulates the sentiment one may experience when they allow the gravity of life and work and their relationships to collapse inward.
I thought, what better analog than a supernova? You know, a giant star, once it's spent all of its fuel, no longer has enough energy to withstand its own gravity so that it collapses inward on itself in a supernova. Then to take it a step further, I feel like kind of referring to that in plurality, so not just a supernova, but supernovae. So I want to create a song, and I'm going to title it Novae. I'm feeling for this album I want to be a bit more aggressive and modern sounding with my guitars. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe something in the realm of like Tesseract with those really sparkly, clean, sort of ambient, ethereal, clean tones, coupled with some overdriven, low tuning and very saturated tones. So between now and the end of the week, I'm going to take you all along with me to sort of showcase my method and how I go about writing a song, producing it, and then ultimately releasing it. And I'm hoping that along the way you learn a little bit more about me, and hopefully at the end of this thing I've got a decent song to share with you. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a great week. So I think I'll head on home and show you Hyperspace Studio and some of the gear that I plan to use for this project, and the process that I'll implement to write this song and produce it. Hopefully it turns into a nice little video. But here we go. Novae, day one.
I've already been experimenting with some sparkly clean tones, kind of being inspired by that Tesseract sort of crisp and ethereal type of clean tone. And I'm going to use that as the foundation for the track and just sort of build around that. I'll be using this Fender Telecaster with the two Seymour Duncan humbucker pickups for the rhythm in this track. Signal flow is pretty straightforward. Go right into a tuner, of course, to the Digitech drop, and I'll be playing with it down 5 semitones. Really go for that genty sort of low tone. Right into the Charlie Stringer's Snarling Dog Addicted to Wah Wino Plus wah pedal. Straight imported from 1990 something. I've had this thing forever. A little bit of overdrive here to really kind of add a bit of clarity to the tone. With that Digitech drop being as low as it is at 5 semitones down, it really helps to kind of add a bit more treble in the overdrive and just a skosh of gain to kind of make it a bit more responsive in the chugging arena. And then the output is just a hair below noon there. So it's not adding any volume. In fact, it's taking it back just a skosh. And then straight into the Moore GE200, where I'll be still kind of working on the tone, the signature combination here of amp and cabinet. So I'll have that done sooner than later. The bass is through the same channel. It just diverges at the output of the processor, where it'll go into this preamp here, this DI box. It's a Chinese import, sort of a clone of the simplifier. And for the price, this thing was $100. My goodness, it really helps you take control of that bass tone, and then just a little bit of compression for that bass. But that's it. So guitar straight through, out of the processor into the interface. I'm using an old school Presonus FP10 Firewire. Luckily the computer I use still had a Firewire driver on it from in the early 2000s, because it is no longer supported by Presonus. A lot of vintage equipment being used on this one. But again, bass tone comes straight on through. When I'm running the bass, there'll be no additional processing until I get to this, and it'll come into the compressor and then into the DI and then right into that interface there. So very nominal processing on the bass, but you'd be surprised, this drop 5 semitones down on a 4-string bass, it's pretty aggressive. Oddly enough, I use Propellerhead Reason 11 as my digital audio workstation. Not exactly designed for the type of music I make. It's really more for hip-hop, electronica, sort of that more processed, less acoustic sort of genres, but I have always used it since like 2005, and I've had multiple versions of it, and I seem to really gravitate towards it, even in it not supporting VST3s. So I really was hoping to be able to use some of these ML Audio Lab plugins for this track, but unfortunately Reason does not allow VST3s, and ML Sound Labs only uses VST3. There's some workarounds for it that'll allow you to host these VST3s in Reason, and I've tried, and I'll just be honest, I'm not smart enough. I cannot get that to work, so decided instead again to go back to that Moore GE200. This is the same all-in-one unit that I used on Surface and my 2020 EP, and it's definitely not bad. For the price these Moore GE200s run, they do a very good job of amp and cab simulation. The effects are okay, but I don't use it for any effects aside from maybe a little bit of compression. That's it. Again, Propellerhead Reason has quite a few built-in effects, and it does allow for VSTs. So it's everything I need in the way of effects, and I'm just very familiar with each of them. I'm really a huge fan of the delay effects. Some of the other more studio-centric rack components, like the M-Class Maximizer, even though that's a cardinal sin for most live musicians, I really like the way that helps bring drums to the forefront, and I use this program 100% for all of the drums in all of my songs. So between the Dr. Octo Rex loop player and Kong drum designer, just being triggered with either one of these types of pads or the pads on my controller, that seems to really suit the purpose for what I do. So these are the things I'll be using to put Novae together, and I hope it starts to come together. See you tomorrow. Each of my songs begins as a single idea, usually a phrase, maybe only a few bars long, and over time it's replicated and expanded upon until finally it's nothing more than a tiny piece of a much larger organism.
Novae, day 2. So I've gotten the sparkly, ethereal, clean guitar part pretty well hammered out. So what I want to do next is show you how I will sort of build upon that for the rest of the song. I'll allow that single phrase to inspire the tempo, the beat, the rhythm, the melodies. It'll pretty much do all the work for me. I'm just there to sort of co-pilot while this thing kind of expresses itself. So let's get to it. I took some time to throw down a couple of guitar tracks, bass line, even threw in some drums there. Let's start off with the bass here. Nothing crazy, just a bass line, right? Throw left and right guitar in here. It's starting to come together. It's kind of rock and rolly. So, drums, I'll introduce here one by one. I think this is kick. And then maybe some snare. Hi-hat open and closed. Crashes going on here. And the final touch is a couple toms. So that seems to be the starting point here. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. That's fun.
We strut our stuff. We show the world what we're made of. We flaunt what we've got. We're all guilty of it to varying degrees. I don't have a lot to show off, but what I will say is I love producing music. And in doing that, I've found a way to become a better artist.
Novae, day 3. So tonight I'm going to continue to write and record some guitar, bass, and drum parts and move the project forward, but I really want to showcase some of the oddities that I employ from a production perspective. I never took the opportunity to learn much about music theory, and I only took a handful of guitar lessons in the 90s, but I've got big ideas, and thankfully the digital audio workstations that we employ nowadays really give guys like me an opportunity to express myself creatively in a way that I otherwise might not be able to. I took the last few hours to lay some additional guitar and bass parts. What you're hearing here is what we did yesterday. And with this piece, the guitar and bass parts are one take. Now when we move into this next piece, quite a bit more dynamics in the way of changes, and it's complicated and it's abrupt, it's weird, and frankly I can't play it straight through. So what I've done is segmented into 16 different parts that I could land a good take with. So pretty good. What you wind up with though is a bunch of seams. I like the way it sounds, but with each of those seams there comes a drawback. So there is a tiny click that you can hear, listening closely, every time one of those seams is passed. So I don't like that, and you can definitely tell that it's quantized and that it's segmented and that there's some looping going on. So clever way around that. We'll select the piece that we'd like to fix. So I'm only going to select the guitar and bass tracks, as they're the only ones that have any seams to work out here. So once I've got everything that I want to change selected, I'm going to change the unit of measurement that I'm able to move things around within from the standard, which is a bar. So each of these cells is a bar. I'm going to change it from that down to 1/128ths of a bar. What that lets me do is to zoom in very tightly to the pieces. Oh, I'm going to stop it so that I don't keep moving it around. When I get in nice and tight, all I want to do is grab one of the corners of any clip and just move it back. That creates a fade effect on every single clip, and that fade's length of time to fade in is 1/128ths of a bar.
Now for context, that's a really short amount of time that's not really perceivable by human ears. I'm going to move over and do the same with any random click and fade it out by pulling it back one click. And that's it. So in doing that, that unfortunate noise that seems to happen when you produce music this way has gone away. So let's test that out. That's much better. And one final thing I want to do to clean up this odd bass line that I've got going on, I want to normalize it. So what I'm experiencing is that there's some significant amplitude changes between the various clips within the bass line. And that's simply because some of the attack that I used on those clips was done with your traditional finger plucking, your finger picking. The others were done more aggressively with a slap technique. So with my thumb, just percussively banging the string. So that, by nature, creates a louder amplitude than your traditional finger picking. So I want to normalize that so that all of those clips have a little bit more common amplitude. So with them selected, I'm simply going to right-click and scroll down to normalize clips. Let it run its thing. Boom, it's significantly louder. What it in essence does is it normalizes the peaks and the valleys of the amplitude, and it tries to find a common, happy point to bring all of the lower amplitudes to, and it does scale back some of the higher amplitudes down. So in that, it's a bit like a hard limiter with a compressor effect, but a little bit more studio-centric as it's done on the track level versus in each clip. So that's that. That's as easy as it is to sort of kind of get things going when it comes to intricate parts that are maybe a little bit beyond your capabilities, so that you're still able to achieve the sound you're looking for, even though you might not be good enough to play. So anyway, that's what we're going to end on this evening, and I'll be back tomorrow with something else. I don't know. We'll see. Keep moving forward.
Willful distraction is something that I struggle with immensely when it comes to creative endeavors. When I see how far out the end of a project is, I find solace in trivial tasks distracting me. This is an enemy of the artist.
Novae, day 4. So I was up pretty much all night working on the project. I think I got to bed around 4:30 in the morning, but unfortunately spent most of the energy on the video, so I'm a little behind musically. So I think with the rest of my day, I'm going to spend most of my energy laying down the rest of the drums and rhythm guitar and bass, so that by the time I turn this camera back on this evening, I'll have enough audio in the session to kind of start showing you what it looks like to move these pieces around and really build the song's structure. That paves the way for the leads, and then from there it's mix and then master, and then it's done. So I'll see you in a bit.
It's coming along. So the ever so familiar sparkly, ethereal, clean tones that you've heard by now ad nauseum. But again, it's kind of the theme of the whole project, so turned the pieces I recorded the day before yesterday into a bit of a staggered intro. Did a little different work with the hi-hat here for the intro. Then it's pretty well flying right into the part that I've had done for a few days now. I enjoyed recording this piece. It came pretty quickly and it sounded really good right away. Aside from the noise of the amp sim, which which I cannot seem to get under control. Noise gate on, though. That helps keep it a little tame. Ooh, there's that new stuff. So new bridge, sliding into a second part. I mean, I'm instrumental, so it's not really chorus or verse. And it's not going to have a traditional song structure by any means. Most of my stuff doesn't. Most of my music is, it sounds like it should have a vocalist, but it never gets to a spot where vocals would be. Whatever. There's some new stuff coming here as well. I mean, it's genty, but it's positive sounding. There's something fun and like uplifting about it. It's supposed to be a depressing thing, but whatever. So that's that. So tomorrow I will finish up working with these pieces, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to put one additional piece in that's very simple bass and mild guitar that I'll be using for the primary spot for the leads to go. So that's about it. I guess we'll see where it lands tomorrow. Until then, bye.
One can so rarely say, with any degree of honesty, that there isn't someone out there better than you are at something you love, that isn't happier than you are, healthier than you are, that doesn't have something that you want. The only real question is, what kind of person are you? Do you envy, or are you inspired?
Novae, day 5. So I'm approaching that spot in the production where it's time to start laying leads, and as exciting as that is, it's also immensely daunting for me. Again, as a guitarist who only stuck around for a few lessons in the 90s and never really took the initiative to learn much about music theory, lead and solo work is probably the hardest thing for me to achieve. My parents bought me my first guitar in 1997. I really wanted to learn how to play, and I was inspired to do so by the likes of Adam Jones of Tool, Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, Stephen Carpenter of Deftones. And during that period of time, the transition from grunge to nu metal was fully underway, and it was really exciting for me. Out of the gates as a new guitarist, I found myself able to play a lot of the stuff by my favorite guitar players. And it was really inspiring, and it really helped me sort of cement myself as somebody who really found being a musician as part of my identity. Fast forward to 2022, now my social media feed is full of guitarists that are around the same age as I was when I began, but already 10 times as good as I am now. You've got the likes of Stevie T and Jared Dines on YouTube, bringing amazing, technical, heavy guitar to popular culture. You've got Tim Henson of Polyphia and Tosin Abasi of Animals as Leaders, which I can only describe those two gentlemen as interdimensional beings from the future. I think it's safe to say that this generation of heavy guitarists has really shaken things up. They've set a new gold standard, and although I don't have any belief that I'll ever be able to approach what they're capable of, I am inspired by them. So let's work on some leads.
Perfection isn't real, at least not in a practical way. Meaningless to someone who doesn't understand the seemingly arbitrary parameters or doesn't share the opinion. Perfection doesn't live in the heart of people. the pursuit of perfection does.
Novae, day 6. Done recording. Now I'm going to move into the phase where I'm kind of mixing, panning, adding some effects to the tracks, adding some effects to the mix overall, and then kind of getting it as good as I can possibly make it sound before I export it to another program where I'll put the final mastering touches on it. And then I'll push out the final product. Awesome. Here we go.
Just kind of run through what I've got so far here. The intro, which I'm sure you're all extremely familiar with by now, ad nauseum. Worked up a bit of a intro. There's still work to be done, but just kind of getting an idea for how I want the thing to start off. Get that hi-hat going, closed. Again, familiar with this part of the song already. There's been a little bit of work done to it, but it's really pretty similar to how it's been the past couple of days. So here's some new stuff that came up today. And here we are after a few hours of mixing, a little bit of editing. Some EQing happened on most of the tracks, adding and removing duplicates just to really kind of play with the overall feel. And after a few hours here, I think we've got it. So I'm going to call that a wrap. That's good. So I appreciate you joining me on this little journey. Although I didn't show you every gritty detail of how I throw these things together, I feel like I gave you quite a bit of perspective. The steps, the process, high-level overview, and I just really appreciate you coming along for the ride. Final step with this is to export it as a lossless WAV file to Adobe Audition. In there, it's going to get a bit of a boost, like a 1.5 decibel boost. And then a hard limit of negative 0.5 decibels. Kind of squash it all together in just the right place so that it sounds great in your car, in your cell phone, speakers, earbuds, monophonic and stereophonic. And then we'll be done. So I'm going to release that on a separate video that will come out right as this one's coming out. So again, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been awesome. And I had a really good time. And I'm glad that you were able to join me on this. Bye-bye.